As always, this podcast is brought to you by Declan Kirby GAA Star. Pre-order the book now from Bookstation and be in with a chance to win a family pass to the Croke Park Museum. The new book comes out on April 21st. If you're looking to pick up any presents for any nieces or nephews in the coming weeks and months, then why not check out Declan Kirby GAA Star, best children's GAA book on the market at the minute, as voted by Amazon and Easons. It's available on all good bookshops, Amazon, Easons, absolutely everywhere. So get yourself a copy. The new book comes out on April 21st, Declan Kirby GAA Star, European Dreams. Check it out now in the description down below, and let's start the stream. Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by Ben Burney from the Hurling Podcast to preview all the weekend's action coming up, of course, in the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. We're going to be running through the big games from the Munster Championship, the big games from the Leinster Championship. We touched on the Joe McDonagh Cup briefly there as well. I suppose, first of all, Ben, I was chatting to you off air there. You're keeping well anyways, and excited for the hurling action?
Yeah, well, these are what you wait the whole year for, isn't it? You go to the league games, but in reality, you're always waiting for championship. And the big games in Wexford Park it's always exciting. We have only two home games this year, so very excited about it.
Yeah, 100%. I suppose we'll crack on with the action from the Munster Championship first of all, looking at Limerick and Waterford first of all. I mean, this is a real humdinger, obviously. I mean, in most people's eyes, obviously the top two in the country, you know, if Limerick are number one, then Waterford are surely number two. And obviously you look at it last weekend, both sides getting the victory in the end. Limerick have had Waterford's number in the last couple of seasons, make no mistake about that. But what's your thinking going into this one?
My thinking is that if Waterford can't get it over the line when Limerick are missing Kyle Hayes, you know, you're probably not going to do it. I do fancy Waterford a bit now. Looking at, they just have more strength and depth. Like Jamie Byrne and Ozzie Gleeson on the bench, they're going to come on, improve things. You know, Limerick's bench, not so much. I know Conor Boylan, Graham Mulcahy are starting. Obviously not bad players, but I don't think they're quite at the level of some of the guys who would be playing, like Peter Casey would be playing only for injury. Kyle Hayes obviously not playing because of injury. But I feel that, I think, you know, those two guys are probably not quite the replacements that Limerick would want. And Waterford's strength and depth is just there to see. But again, Limerick have such strength around the other areas. I feel like it's all about that half-forward line. Garrod Hegarty looking incredible last week again. You know, Keane Lynch didn't fire on all cylinders. But I'm going to go tip Waterford in this one. I'm thinking Stephen Bennett's not going to be held scoreless from play again. And I think it's kind of a huge game for them.
Yeah, it definitely is. All right. And as you said there, I mean, Limerick have very much had Waterford's number over the last couple of years. And you've obviously seen as well, like how well of a job they've done on Jamie Barron in particular around the middle. And you've seen with Waterford, obviously, when they started with Cochrack Daly in around the middle, obviously bring Jamie Barron in at half-time made a big difference to the game. But even last year as well, like you've seen Waterford trying to push Jamie Barron further up the pitch in that All-Ireland semi-final. Like, how do you think they could go about that again? Like, do you think they'll throw Jamie Barron in the middle? Will they throw him up, you know, half-forward line, or what do you reckon?
No, I think midfield, to me, that's his spot. Like, you know, the way he plays, you don't want him with his back to goal, like, kind of, you want him buzzing around the place with more of a free roll. So I reckon he'll come on midfield. Ozzie Gleeson is the one you don't know kind of where, because they could literally put him anywhere. They could spot who's not doing well for Limerick and, you know, bring him in there. See, because he can bully a full back, a back who's not doing well, and get 2 goals in. As we know from Wexford, he can get 2 goals quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I mean, what have you made of Waterford in general this year? I mean, 24 goals in 8 games. I mean, their attack is relentless, really. Like, and some of the best hurlers in the country. Like, it'd be interesting to see. Like, I feel like Desi Hutchinson has been relatively quiet when he's come up against Limerick in the last couple of seasons as well. Maybe Waterford haven't got their best players, I suppose, to produce their best performances against Limerick in the last couple of seasons. So like, what have you made of them in general this year? And I suppose, how important is it that you think the likes of Desi Hutchinson really need to, I suppose, produce a big performance on this day? Because, they're likely to potentially play Limerick at some point further down the line in the championship, if not, 2 or 3 times. So, they really need to get this win over Limerick, I suppose, to put down a bit of a marker.
Yeah, I think they do. Like, again, as I said, Kyle Hayes is most likely going to be back for the next one. So you expect him to be beaten without that absolute animal of a man. In terms of Desi not performing against Limerick, he's been well marked by Sean Finn on those occasions. But I also feel that Waterford haven't necessarily got the service to him. Limerick have been very good at blocking out that service with their deep half back line, Diarmaid Burns, Declan Hannon, and now Dan Morrissey back there again. It's all about Desi might have to come out a bit, I think, to try get into play if the ball is not getting into him. Like, maybe Mikey Kiley now is one who is starting this year, and he is a beast of a man. I don't know if you remember in the league semi-final against Wexford, he kind of brushed D. O'Keefe aside and put the ball over the bar. Scored a goal the last day, created a goal. Now I would question his goal. I would question whether it was a throw or not. It looked to me that it was a throw. But he's a serious physical specimen, and he will go a long way to matching Limerick up physically.
No, absolutely. And Gary Doran says here, Waterford are one of the best teams at scoring goals, but aren't able to score them against Limerick. And I suppose that is the point as well. Like, we have seen that with Waterford, obviously, in the last couple of years, and how well defensively Limerick have done against Waterford. But I suppose with the addition of players like Pádraig Mahoney, who's obviously come back in there, Cotterick Daly, Mikey Kiley, like you said before, I mean, it's going to be that part of the game is going to be very fascinating, because Limerick seem to keep finding a way to shut Waterford out in terms of that attack. And, but at the same time, you look at Waterford's forwards and you think surely at some point they're going to have to deliver against this Limerick team.
Like Gary said there, Waterford are the best team at scoring goals, but they've been not that they haven't been good scoring goals the last couple of years, but they've been particularly good scoring goals this year in the league. Now, not that they're going to go out and get 4 or 5, but I do think that they will be capable of getting a few. Their forwards are incredible. The speed they can run in. The way that Prendergast and Kern have been playing. These are guys who have been there for a few years but haven't been performing, and now they're performing big time. Like, I do think that Waterford are well capable of getting goals. Just because they haven't done it against Limerick in previous seasons doesn't mean they're not capable again this year. Maybe last year in the All-Ireland semi-final, they went a bit too physical. They tried to almost beat Limerick physically in the first 10 minutes, and then they kind of hadn't got anything. Oh, this is not working. What have we got? Maybe they need to just stick more to the hurling. I remember Stephen Bennett getting a lot of credit. Oh, you gave Gerard Hegarty a big shoulder at the start, early in the game. But I was like, did that affect the game? Like, I don't think so. They just need to get their... Obviously, you need to man up. That's non-negotiable. Man up, work rate and physicality. But you need to remember to hurl. And I think Waterford will remember that this year.
Yeah, it is a fair point, all right. Like, and it's an interesting one with this game as well, because as we were mentioning there, like, I feel like, with these two counties, they could very well play each other in a Munster final, could very well play each other in the All-Ireland, senior hurling final at some point, or somewhere maybe in the semi-finals, potentially, depending on how it all works out. And you're looking at it and thinking, could there maybe be a bit of shadow boxing maybe in this game? Like, could either side maybe not want to force their hand? Like, this is probably the one game that either team could afford to lose and maybe still progress on through the Munster Championship. So could we see a bit of that, do you think?
I don't think you'll see it from Waterford. I think they're going out to win every game. But it's possible from Limerick, because we have seen that from Limerick in the past. If you remember a couple of years ago, they got beaten comfortably enough by Tipperary in the round robin, and then bet Tipperary out the gate then come the Munster final. So it is quite possible. I still think they'll want to win the game, to make sure they're through. But if there is a bit of shadow boxing, I think it's going to come from Limerick. Like maybe Kyle Hayes is not that bad, not that bad, and he could have played if they really needed him. Could have played, but they're just holding him back just in case.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Like, I mean, obviously it's a marathon, not a sprint, and I'm sure they don't want to rush him out there. Like, I mean, looking at Limerick in general, though, like obviously you've seen how well they performed against Cork, obviously finishing with 225 and that sort of total hurling where, so many players in the team are almost interchangeable, playing in different positions week on week. And I mean, they just seem to get so much out of themselves, really. Like, and I mean, it's going to be so hard to see how Waterford stop this Limerick team at the same time. Like, we're speaking about Waterford's strengths, but as you were saying there, like with Limerick against, like even for myself, like against Cork, I felt like they still probably had an extra 20 to 30% to go up on in that game. And, Keane Lynch, Gerard Hegarty, these lads probably even can play even better in this one. So, like, if Limerick are at the races, it's going to be very hard to see how Waterford stop them.
Yeah, true. But only a few weeks ago, people were looking at how in God's name do you stop Waterford running through? I think it's going to be a tight one, I think. I don't think Limerick are going to run away with it like they had done in the last couple of years. Waterford are playing some serious stuff, and I think maybe there was a lot of expectation on them for the last couple of weeks, and maybe they got those kind of nerves out of the way last week. I think Waterford are going to be well able to handle it. And plus, the fact that I said there earlier, Conor Boylan is probably not at the level that Peter Casey was at last year. Graham Mulcahy is not at the level that he had been in previous years. So when you look at that, it's kind of, you've one top quality forward in the full forward line in Gillan. So maybe you can allow the other guys to push out more. Like maybe Jack Fagan can follow Gerard Hegarty a bit more out the field. Won't have to cover back as much. I'm interested to see, will that be the battle? Because like someone needs to sort out Hegarty. He's too good. He's getting involved in everything. Someone needs to get in there and stop him hurling out the field, stop him scoring those points from distance. And maybe Jack Fagan is the man to do it, but we'll see.
Yeah, 100%. So you're back in Waterford anyway to pull off the victory at the Gaelic grounds here and get a first championship win in what has to be a couple of years over the Treaty, man.
I'm gonna go with Waterford. Yeah, I reckon you could be. Your suggestion of shadowboxing is more likely to be Limerick shadowboxing rather than Waterford, I think. And I think with the bench that's coming on, Gleeson and Jamie Barron, who will come on in the second half, I think they'll do it.
Yeah, it's a hard one because you just don't know what level Limerick are going to play at. Like, I feel like if Limerick play to 100%, I feel like they will beat Waterford, but I don't think they will play at 100% because I think they will definitely have eyes, obviously, on the next two games that are coming up. And obviously the fact that, if provided they obviously win those two games, they'll be in a Munster final. And it's, a long way to go, obviously, between now and the All-Ireland final as well. So I think, as you said there, like, I think there might be a bit of shadow boxing maybe from Limerick. It could even be a draw, this one as well. Like, I think it's going to be very, very close, but I think I'd back maybe Waterford just about by a point. You've got Tipperary going up against Clare, which is the other game in the Munster Championship as well. Tipperary, I mean, a lot of people obviously writing them off coming into the Munster Championship this year, but they showed a very spirited performance against Waterford, and maybe on another day could have came out with a victory there. And I think a lot of people are forgetting as well, like, I think they had 14 All-Ireland winners on the pitch against Waterford the last day out. So whilst a lot of people are going against them at home against a Clare team that we obviously haven't seen this year so far in the championship, and just one win so far from the league. So, I mean, maybe the screws have turned a bit, and maybe people are looking at Tipperary to potentially pull off the victory here.
I am anyway. Now, you say at home there, I don't think Thurles, I know it is at home for Tipperary, but it's not too far from Clare. Clare are more than comfortable playing in Thurles. It's not too different for him. But I think the way Tipperary played last week, will stand to them. And there's a lot made about playing too many matches in a row, you'd be fatigued and be muscle injuries and stuff like that. But I do think playing a championship game, there's no preparation like it. And Clare haven't done it. Tony Kelly, obviously one of the best hurlers in Ireland. He's going to be the main man Tipp need to look out for. But at the same time, he's still only a couple of months back from a long-term injury. He was out for 6 months or so there. I think Tipperary are going to do it. I think the way Mark Yo finally coming into his own, took him a few years there to finally get in there. Noel McGrath, hurling well. They've, huge strength and depth. I think Colin Banner is an excellent manager. Clare missing Aidan McCarthy, excellent hurler, and they probably just don't have the quality all over the field. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way now, to be honest. You can never be surprised when Tony Kelly comes in and scores 20 points and wins the game, but I'd be picking Tipperary.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right, because we've seen with Clare, like they've so many talented hurlers all across the pitch, and we don't know what's going to obviously happen with Peter Duggan as well. Like, is he going to start? Is he going to be coming off the bench? Is John Conlon going to be playing at centre back, or is he going to be moved back up into the forwards? Mark Rogers, obviously the status of his injury as well. Could he be coming off the bench? Like, I think Clare have got a very well-rounded team, and I think when they've got their best players on the pitch available, I think they could definitely beat Tipperary, and I think they definitely could turn them over. But at the same time, you are looking at a lot of those players, and there is a lot of if, buts, and maybes. And I think maybe that's why you kind of look at Tipp. And although, as you said, Thurles isn't far from Clare, so Clare might not see this as an away game. But given Tipp's performance last week against Waterford, I do think it will give them a lot of confidence going into this.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the fact that they've had a championship game, they're in the thick of it. Clare, even though the championship is so close to the league this year, Clare haven't had a game in 5 weeks now, is it? I think that championship game is a stand to them, and they were only 4 points behind. Jason Ford, one of their best hurlers, did not do well. I think he's going to do well this weekend. I think Tipp are going to do it.
Yeah, and I think you look at Noel McGrath as well, and the form he's in as well, and the performance he produced against Waterford last weekend. And I thought Barry Heffernan was very good in around the middle and there for Tipp last week. Obviously James Owens is coming in there as the referee. He was obviously the referee during Tipperary and Clare last year when he gave that controversial foul on Aidan McCarthy, I think it was. And it was obviously closer to the Ennis Road than it was would it being a penalty. So a crazy decision really in many ways. And incredibly enough, they've gone with James Owens again. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I think they did that in another game there last week as well. Bizarre really. I mean, you'd wonder if they're almost doing this on purpose or something.
Now, the first thing I'd say is James Owens is an excellent ref. He is one of the best. I think he was a little bit done by the rule last year. It's kind of a ridiculous rule. And it was a terrible challenge from Aidan McCarthy. Terrible challenge. I don't know how he seems to have got away with scot-free, people not asking, what is he doing? Like, challenge could have even been a red card. It was so bad. But, it wasn't the goal scoring opportunity. He was wrong to do that. But it's, especially with what Brian Lohan was very unfair to James Owens, I think, after the game. And when a manager and the whole county, every pundit is saying you made the wrong decision in this game, in particular what Brian Lohan said to James Owens, it's baffling how they put him in for this game. Like, there are so many other games he could ref. Like, why this one?
Yeah, it is an interesting one, and you'd wonder maybe did they say to him maybe before, we need you to ref this game, and maybe he had the option of saying no, maybe he had the option of declining, and maybe he's gone ahead and said, look, I don't really care about that, I'll go ahead and do it. I don't really know what the whole ins and outs is, but I do get what you mean. I think James Owens a very experienced, obviously, referee at this level. And I think there was a lot of confusion around that rule, in particular at the start of last year's league and championship. There was a lot of rules in there that a lot of people didn't really seem to understand or know. And you could argue maybe it was the rule. But, I mean, in total, though, do you think Clare might be buoyed up a little bit by the fact that, obviously, not the fact that James Owens is refereeing, but given the fact that obviously what happened to them last year, like they were doing very well against Tipperary, they were in front, and obviously when that decision happened, in most people's eyes, it changed the game, and obviously Tipperary went on to win from there. So, do you think Clare maybe could be buoyed up a bit by
that? I don't think it should affect Clare's motivation. Like, Clare's motivation should be just to do well in the championship regardless. I don't think any appointment of referee, and it could distract them if anything, but it shouldn't. Right? If they're being professional about it, it shouldn't affect their performance, right or wrong. Like, if the referee appointment or what happened last year, is influencing them, then they need to do a lot more work, I think.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So who are you backing then? You're backing Tipperary to pull off the victory here?
Oh, I'm going for Tipp, yeah. I'm going for Tipp. Now again, I would not be surprised to see, Clare come away with the victory.
Yeah, it's a hard one to call again. I mean, all these games are kind of hard to call. I'm going to go for a draw, to be perfectly honest. I just think Clare are going to have an extra 5 to 10% in them.
Is that 2 draws you've gone for then?
I think 1 draw. I think I backed. Did I back Waterford? I think to beat Limerick, or did I go for a draw? I don't know. I think maybe we'll go back there and Waterford to get the victory. This one to be a draw. But sure, look, I think it could be very, very close indeed. And another game that could be close, and obviously you're a Wexford man, I'm a Dublin man, so we'll be hoping for opposite results, obviously, in this one. But I suppose as a Wexford man yourself, I mean, that was some turnaround, obviously, against Galway. I mean, I think a lot of people felt that Galway really should have had that game dead and buried, and you obviously had that situation with Conor Cooney as well. It obviously gets overturned. Lee Chin comes off the bench and makes a huge impact. So I suppose as a Wexford man, we were chatting off air there, you're feeling confident going into this one?
Yeah, I would be confident. I think the lads needed, probably after the Waterford game in the league, you needed something to give them a bit more confidence, and that did in the second half. They were very poor in the first half, but got going in the second half. Dublin definitely didn't play as well as they would have liked against Laois, but they do have excellent hurlers. I think it's going to be a very, very tight game, and whoever loses is going to be seriously up against it. It's a must win for Wexford, really, with being a home game, second home game. If you don't win 1 or 2 home games, you're seriously struggling. And I reckon Dublin probably look at this one as the one they reckon they can win as well. So 2 teams really want to peak for this one, I think. And I believe Wexford can get over the line. Interesting there, saying to you off air as well. The Wexford 15 is, I think, the same, just a few positional changes. Kevin Foley to the half-forward line, Liam McGovern to midfield. I think the amount of running Liam McGovern done will help in midfield. Matt O'Hanlon to the half-back line. He was obviously cornerback against Galway, marking Conor Whelan. So I'm guessing he's coming to the half-back line to mark Dublin's danger man. So he's most likely going to be following Donald Burke around, which I think is going to be interesting to see. When Matt O'Hanlon has struggled on people, it's been speed. Donald Burke has a bit of speed, so we'll see. But can he get past the ferocity that Matt O'Hanlon is going to bring is the question. Conor Mack and Owen O'Donnell is going to be a very good battle, I think. 2 very physical players, and the way Conor Mack has been playing, I'm hopeful he can do the same again as he did last week.
Yeah, 100%. And as you were saying there as well, I suppose from a Dublin point of view, really, I think it's a huge game because we play Kilkenny at home, and to be honest with you, we never beat Kilkenny really. Kilkenny probably beat us with one eye closed, really. That just seems to be the way it's been over the last 10 years or so. And obviously we have a great record against Galway, but we are playing them away from home, so that's going to be very difficult as well. And I think score difference could be a massive factor here, and a 2-point win over Laois, I think a lot of other teams maybe might put up a bigger score against Laois, and that could be, go against Dublin at some point. But as you said there, the matchups are going to be very, very interesting. And I suppose Lee Chin, I mean, we've seen him come off the bench the last day. I haven't seen the Wexford team yet. Is he starting or is he on the bench again?
No, Lee is held in reserve again. It's the exact same team, only a few positional changes. Damien Reck has gone to cornerback. Paddy Foley has gone to centre back. Matt O'Hanlon has gone to wing back. Lee Mug McGovern gone to midfield. Kevin Foley gone to centre forward. Other than that, same team. I reckon Lee Chin will be coming on around the same time, but it could very much depend on how the game is going. Like if we... Actually, no, he's going to be coming on around the same time. But if we're getting bet out the gate, he might come on earlier, But yeah, he's probably just not fit enough to cover the full game. You're better off bringing him on to buy things up as opposed to taking him off.
Yeah, and we seen obviously in the Galway game, Wexford had started pretty slow. Galway came flying out of traps and arguably could have finished Wexford off. Like, would that be the only worry maybe, that although he did finish the game quite strong, and I'm sure you're thinking, look, we should keep the same momentum at the start of this game this time around, but is there a worry there that if Dublin can click into gear in the opening half an hour, maybe they're a bit more clinical than Galway, that it might be a tough way back from there? Like, maybe you mightn't be able to get back into it in the same way that you did against Galway.
Yeah, it has to be a worry. Like, Dublin completely tore us apart in the Walsh Cup final there back in January. Now I know it's January. It's the Walsh Cup. Not really to be... If the league is pre-season, the Walsh Cup is pre-season, so you wouldn't want to be taking it too seriously. But Wexford do need to start better. Like, they deserved to be punished in the first half against Galway. The game probably should have been over at half-time. Dublin will probably be thinking, if we take our chances the way Wexford gave them to Galway, like, we can win this game quite comfortably. So I'm hoping the Wexford learned the lessons. You have to play games. You have to learn lessons what you did wrong. So I hope Wexford will have done that, and that could be something to do with a few positional changes around, or maybe it's just matchups to see who marks who.
Yeah, no, I do get what you're saying, and I'd agree with you as well from a Dublin point of view. I think hopefully from our sake we can learn our lessons, because for ourselves, like, it was very much the other way around. We started very, very fast. We were looking well in control. A late goal goes in towards the end of the game, and the Roland has a big chance as well. And Laois maybe in the end could have potentially come out with the win there. So there's definitely going to be a lot of pressure on Dublin in regards to that. So what do you reckon anyway? I'd imagine you're back in Wexford anyway. I think it would be a bit crazy if you if you were to go against your own county for this one.
Oh, I couldn't go against Wexford. I wouldn't be able to show my face in Wexford Park again if I went for Dublin in this one. Yeah, but I tipped Wexford last week as well.
I suppose you weren't far off. I mean,
it's the point, I suppose.
Yeah. Who would you be worried about most from a Dublin perspective, do you think?
Well, obviously Donald Burke is excellent forward. Ronan Hayes, I think, is a very good target man. So as long as we keep the grips with Ronan Hayes, I think we'll be okay. He's not generally a huge scorer, but he's an excellent player. And I'm imagining the trollier Eamon Dillon is going to be coming off the bench. For whatever reason, he's an excellent player when he comes off the bench. I always guarantee a couple of points, but he's only half the player when he starts. I don't know why, but when he comes on, we have to be worried. He's quite good, but they're the main ones. Like, Donald Burke obviously can almost score from anywhere. I'm expecting Matt O'Hanlon to be very tight to him, but again, I would be worried about the speed difference if they get the ball to him in open space.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping for a big game from Ronan Hayes. Make no mistake about that. I mean, obviously, electric throughout the Dublin Senior Hurling Championship, and the same in the All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship as well. But was quiet enough against Laois. Like, only hit a point that day. So hopefully we'll be hoping for a little bit more from him. But yeah, look, I'm going to back Dublin for the win. I think maybe we'll go ahead and sneak it. Our record against Wexford in the last couple of years, actually in the championship, hasn't been too bad. There's been a couple of draws in there, so I reckon we'll go there and sneak a point, sneak the win by a point, I suppose you could say. Kilkenny and Laois. Kilkenny at home. I think most people and every dog on the street really will be backing Kilkenny to put up a big score here.
Yeah, you couldn't really go against Kilkenny. Plus, like last week, TJ didn't start. He came on. This week he's starting. He has been, in my opinion, the best hurler in the country probably for the last maybe 10 years. Probably didn't get enough credit earlier on. He's only getting it what he deserves really in the last 5 or 6 years. So I can't see Laois coming out with anything. And what happens a lot with the so-called weaker counties in these championships and leagues, they really put it up a couple of years ago, awfully really put it up against Kilkenny. They really put it up in another game then, and then as it goes later on into the year in the championship, they tend to get big beatings. Now, I know this is only the second game, but Laois seriously put it up against Dublin last week. So maybe they still don't have the same squad as other teams, but you just couldn't back against Kilkenny really with the players they have. And Brian Cody, I don't know if Brian Cody's ever been shocked by a Laois or Westmeath, so I could not go against Kilkenny.
Yeah, no, I think you'd be going donkeys back to find out really the last time Laois beat Kilkenny at hurling, if they ever have at senior level. And as you were saying there, you make a good point. Like even Carlow, I remember a couple of years ago when they played Galway on the opening day of the round robin, and they were only beaten by a couple of points, and that ended up coming back to haunt Galway then because they got knocked out of the round robin based on score difference there back in 2019, I think it was. So. Yeah, for Laois, they've started well, and we've seen that a little bit with Laois in the last couple of years. Like they seem to come I know they beat Dublin in 2019, but they seem to come very close to taking scalps. Like they nearly beat Waterford last year. They were, I think, against in one of the league games this year. They put it up to someone as well. Remember they gave Clare a good run for their money a couple of seasons ago as well. So, like that's the thing with Laois. They clearly do have talented hurlers in the likes of Patrick Purcell, PJ Scully, Stephen Pickey-Marr, these lads, but it just, they just can't quite seem to get over the line against a big team. And I suppose it's, it'd be very hard to see them do that again this weekend.
Yeah, going to Nolan Park as well, in the championship, you'd have to say that most likely the place away teams probably don't win. It's probably Nolan Park, so you can't be expecting Laois to go there and turn over Kilkenny. We'd have to relearn everything we ever knew about the game.
Yeah, where do Kilkenny rank in your opinion in terms of the overall All-Ireland big picture? I think a lot of people have them as maybe slight favourites for Leinster at the minute, but what do you reckon?
I reckon they have to be slight favourites for Leinster. They're Kilkenny. They've won the last 2 Leinster titles. People forget that when they're talking about how good they are. They won the last 2. Wexford and Galway, neither team can be happy with their performance last week. Kilkenny have to be number 1 in Leinster. Not by much. Like you wouldn't be surprised to see them beaten by either of those teams, or you wouldn't be surprised to see Dublin take them down. But I'd say they have to be ranked maybe 3rd, I think. Limerick and Waterford obviously have to be the top 2. Cork, having been most people's number 3 with 1 result, have plummeted now, and a lot of people don't think to get out of Munster. But that's where I'd be putting Kilkenny, number 3.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that as well. Like it's a hard one with Cork, really. Like when you looked at that performance, obviously last week against Limerick, and the amount of big beatings they've really taken in the last year or so, it'd be hard for them to see how they can, I suppose, get back to that level again. You've Galway against Westmeath. I suppose we're obviously both backing a Kilkenny victory for that one, and I suppose in regards to this, I mean, if Kilkenny are going to put up a big beating against Laois, then you'd look at this game really, and you kind of worry for Westmeath a bit, because I feel like this could be double digits, potentially even in the 20s really for Galway in terms of a margin of victory.
You would have to think that Galway would be thinking like that, because the last round robin, it was them who got stung by points difference. So they have to be thinking, we're not letting this happen to us again. But having said that, they couldn't get enough scores to beat Wexford. Conor Whelan came off injured with a hamstring, so I wouldn't be expecting to be seeing him. He's their best forward by a mile. Brian Concannon is only back. Jason Flynn is missing. They don't have all the players they would like to have. So without Conor Whelan, they could struggle to get the scores on the board. Obviously, expect them to win. Still think they will. But maybe they don't have the firepower that they expect to have. Like, I think the guy who came on for Conor Whelan, Gavin Lee, he's only doing his leaving cert. He's a young guy. It's unfair to expect him. But he's obviously got something if he's doing his leaving cert and he's coming on for Galway in the championship. So maybe we might see what he's all about this weekend.
Yeah, and do you think Galway, if they don't put up a big score in this game, and obviously looking at their fixtures as well, I know they're home to Dublin. I think they're home to Kilkenny as well. But you're looking at it in general for Galway. I mean, there is the danger if they don't put up a big score in this game that they could get caught, and they could be the ones to potentially finish outside that round robin, system again, because you seen last year they got beat by Dublin. 2019 they got beat by Dublin, so it's not exactly inconceivable. So I suppose it is of huge importance really for Galway to, I suppose, build confidence and put up a big score here.
It is, but you have to worry about winning the game first. Like, that score difference will only come in. Like, if they go and beat Kilkenny next week, then they'll be fine. So they have to just focus on getting the wins. If you start thinking about score differences, that's where you're going to lose. So I think they'll be more focused on getting the victory against Kilkenny in a couple of weeks, as opposed to, and then in the last game when they welcome Dublin, they'd probably love to do nothing more than to knock out Dublin after what happened in the last few years against them.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will, and especially with Matty Kenny obviously being a Galway man as well, obviously managing Dublin at the minute. I'm sure they would certainly love to get some revenge on Dublin following on from that defeat last year. I suppose, speaking about Westmeath, and obviously we were speaking about Laois there earlier as well, I mean, which one of the two would you reckon will get relegated from the Leinster Championship? I mean, obviously I think most people realistically are looking at it and thinking it is going to be either Westmeath or Laois. So which one of the two do you reckon it will be?
You have to imagine that Laois will stay up. Last year they got a few heavy beatings, but managed to get over the line in the important one. This year in the league, they were getting a lot of big beatings, but when it came to the important one against Antrim, they won it. I'm expecting something similar this year. I reckon they will take Westmeath. And they played quite well last week. They nearly won the game, And the Roland, on another day, that goes in. That last 21-yard free he had. So I'd be expecting Laois to stay up.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. I think Laois have proven at this stage. I mean, they're sort of caught really between Division 1, in the National League, they're caught between Division 1 and Division 2. Maybe they're not good enough for Division 1, but they're too good for Division 2. And in some ways, we're seeing that in the Leinster Championship as well, where they've done enough to survive year on year. Sharon says here, I think Dublin 120, Wexford 218 is what Sharon says there. I suppose we'll just run through the Joe McDonagh Cup games briefly there. You've Down versus Antrim, Carlow versus Kerry, and Offaly versus Meath. I suppose Down versus Antrim was the interesting one, really, because you've seen Down take a couple of scalps this year already. They beat Kerry last week. They're obviously in the Division 2A final against Westmeath as well. So although most people would back Antrim to win this convincingly, bit of a local derby, maybe form goes out the window a little bit, and maybe Down could pull off a bit of a shock there.
But I suppose they had a very good win last weekend. But I still think Antrim are the team. You know, they have been doing very well last couple, even though very well to stay up in the league this year after a bad, very disappointing loss to Laois. But then they came back in the decider to stay up. I think Antrim probably didn't perform as well as what's his name? The manager said last week. We played. He made a very good point how we had a lot of great performances the last couple of years, but didn't actually get anything. And then last week, they didn't have a great performance, but ended up getting the victory. You have to expect Antrim, I think, to do it. Down probably don't have the quality that Antrim have. You know, Neil McManus, Keelan Malloy, these guys are superb hurlers, and I think Antrim will just shade. I'd be expecting Antrim to win the Joe McDonagh this year. Never mind, just win this game.
Yeah, I think so. I think most people are looking really at Antrim and Offaly, and obviously, as you were saying there, like Stephen Gleeson's men, done enough in the end to get over Offaly, although it was a very close game, only a 1-point victory, and at Corrigan Park as well, it could have arguably went the other way. Any thoughts on the other two games there, and Carlow against Kerry and Offaly against Meath? I suppose you'd be expecting Offaly to do enough to get past Meath, and Carlow Kerry. I mean, although Kerry might be slight favourites there, I mean, Carlow did put up a big score there last weekend against Meath, so I suppose that one could go either way.
Yeah, I'm gonna tip Carlow for that one. I think Carlow have some excellent hurlers, and it's not too long ago when they were in the Liam McCarthy. You know, when they won under Colin Bonner, they had 2 promotions in a row. They probably just, it was a little too quick for them, but they do have excellent hurlers in Marty Kavanagh and Chris Nolan up in the forwards. A big win, obviously, against Meath, who are probably not. Maybe this is a bit above their level, but we'll see. But I'm gonna tip Carlow for this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna tip Kerry actually, because anytime I've written them off, and anytime they look down and out, they seem to come back from the dead and pull off a big victory. So I'm gonna reckon they're gonna sneak that one. But you would obviously be backing Antrim and Offaly to win those 2 other games there as well. I suppose, Ben, much appreciated you jumping on there for your own podcast, the Hurling Podcast. Where can people find your own podcast if they're looking for it?
Yeah, you can find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, generally wherever you normally get your podcasts. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, generally at Hurling Podcast. It'd be great if you give us a listen. We'll be breaking down a brilliant Wexford win now on Wednesday.
I don't know now. I think you'd be drowning your sorrows. I think now. I think Dublin are going up there and they're going to produce a big performance. I hope so anyway, but sure, look, it could be a draw as well.
Yeah, you wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised to see a draw. It's definitely going to be a very close game anyway. That's what I'd be very surprised to see anything other than a close game.
Perfect. Well, top man Ben, appreciate it.